What's good everyone, Enrique with another video, and this time we're talking about the Digitakt and focusing on the source page. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the SRC page on the Digitakt of course stands for source, and basically what this is saying is what source is track 8 playing. And our source happens to be what sample we have loaded into the project. In this project, we are currently playing sample 53. If we turn this knob, if you go basically up or down, you can access the 127 samples you have loaded into this project. In this case, I want to play Rec 0012, which is of course a sample that I made a while back using the Pocket Operator 33. Right, you can hear it kind of has this little choppy sound to it and it kind of fades out. So we select our sample using this, and as soon as we find the one we like, we can either press the encoder down or you can hit the yes button. So now that we have our sample, or source in this case, selected, we can then start manipulating it on the source page as well. So this is it here. I'm going to go ahead and put a couple steps in. Let me just clear this pattern out. Press play. Let's make this just a single bar. Right, slow down this tempo a little bit. Actually, that drives me nuts. I think I recorded this at 122, maybe 124. Cool, perfect bar. So if we go back to our source page, basically you can see now we have our tuning control. Bipolar knob goes to -24, which is basically 2 octaves lower, or +24, which is 2 octaves higher. When you move the tuning, it does not time stretch it. It's just going to speed the sample up or slow it down. And you can actually see this visually, is if you hit source again, it'll take you to the sample representation, basically viewer. You can see what it's doing in real time. Right? So if I hold down function and turn this, I can set it back to basically default values, and in this case 000. Hitting source again, going back to here, we can change our play modes, and what play modes are is basically how the play is going to happen when it comes to getting the sound triggered. So we have forward, we have a reverse loop, reverse, and then you also have a forward loop. Usually most people have it set to forward, which works totally fine. Basically, to get a better view of this, I'm going to hit source again to look at the actual sample itself being played back. So now in this page where we can actually see the sample, if I were to trigger this sound, you can see this bar moving across, and that's representing basically what we are listening to. It's a playhead going across our sample. This will also give us a better representation of what the play modes are actually doing. So if I just press play, you can see the sample getting triggered over and over again. If I move the play style from forward to reverse, right here, every time it triggers, you can see it actually starts way before the sample even happens. Why is that? Because when I recorded this in, I let a lot of empty space get gathered in the sample with it. So basically my sample played, stopped, and I forgot to hit stop record. But what's cool is right now we have it set to reverse. I can change the length, basically the endpoint. So if I move the endpoint closer to where the sample actually happens, I'm actually changing where the reverse start point happens. Same goes if we were to set this to forward. You can see it starts there. I can change the start point. Maybe I want to start right here. Right? But you can see as I move this, it's also moving our endpoint, our length, because it's not truly an endpoint. It's basically how long the sample is. So say we set the sample to a second long in length, you're moving where that second starts and ends. So let's say we want to go here, and then I'll move the ending point to here. So check this out. If I now set this to forward loop, I can move where the loop point is. Right, so let's then go and stop this, and I'm going to just press this and hold it down. So I set the loop point before the start point, right? So I can say from here, loop here. So the first press will start at the start point and then start looping from the loop point. Right? But what's cool is you can set the loop point before the start point. So I know that sounds crazy, but watch. I can start in the middle of the sample and then start looping way before the start point. And it'll keep doing that because that's now looping in that point. So this cool thing where basically it'll start looping from before the start point doesn't work with the reverse loop. Reason being is because the loop point is going to hit the loop before it actually hits the end point. As opposed to setting it here, it's going to hit the loop point itself and skip the start point in its entirety. This is where you start doing your weird little granular stuff. So if we were then to go and mess with this and set it to a reverse loop and then move the loop point, if you move the loop point all the way to the left, it'll put the loop position as off and actually stop looping the sample. It'll basically tell the amp envelope that you're no longer holding the note, so start closing the amp envelope, but the sample itself is still looping. But that doesn't mean it's going to keep looping when you press this again, because as soon as you press this, it's going to restart its cycle. If we move the loop position past the length point, it'll actually start at the furthest point in the sample, which in this case is our loop point, is further than our length point. Right? So you can do some weird, almost crossfadey type of things going from behind the start point to in front of it. Right? And this all goes and corresponds with how your tuning is set too. We set this to really low and get kind of granular with it. This is where you start to really start shaping up sounds. Like this can now be a new bass line. Go into chromatic mode. Let's go down an octave. Or two. Oh, so because I have this set to -24 already for its tuning, it won't actually allow me to play it any lower than what it is if I set the keyboard to 0, which is this. This is the original pitch, right? If I set the tune point to, let's say, -12, I can then go down an octave and hit that point that we originally have it set to, but I can't go any lower than this. For example, go down an octave even lower than this. They all sound the same. It won't let me hit that pitch. A way to bypass this though, which I won't cover in this video, is you can resample this sound at its lowest tuning point and then tune it down even lower than that. It'll start to sound kind of crazy, but it ends up sounding really cool. Anyway, back to where we were. That's our loop point. And then from here, if we go back to hitting source again and change this back and set this up to basically the way we had it, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hold down source, hit clear, and it's going to clear this to its defaults, and I'm going to go ahead and select that sample again, which was number 53. 53, click, and we have it set. Right. Another thing that we skipped over is the bit rate. This is going to reduce the bit resolution of the sound, kind of making it more distorted and piecey. Listen to this. Of course, the first thing to go are the highs, as always, because they need a lot more resolution. Start turning down the level, right? Because it just gets super gnarly. And I guess you could say it sounds a little more lo-fi, which I guess it does. I mean, that's what a lot of people chase with the older samplers and whatnot. I use it once in a while for kicks and stuff, but it can get a little overkill. I'd rather get it from like tape saturation or something like that. So real quick, just to tie this whole thing up, basically you got your tuning of your sample, which can go down 2 octaves and up 2 octaves, your different play modes, which basically change the way it plays. It's good for creating like longer pads out of a simple sound that you may already have. Your bit reduction, which will give you that, man, I hate to say it, but it says it in the manual, the lo-fi sound, L-O-F-I. I don't know why. And you know what? That's a matter for a different time. Your sample selection, which of course you need to load your samples into the project first before you start accessing them. Your sample selection knob, which of course lets you access the 127 samples that you currently have loaded into the project. And yes, you need to load them into the project first, sample-wise, before you have access to them. Your start point for your sample, the length of that sample. So again, boom, boom, boom. They work in tandem. When you move one, it'll move them both. And then of course your loop point. At what point does this start to loop once it hits the length or the end point and continues going on? And then your level, which is the level for this sample. So with all that aside, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd appreciate the thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down and let me know in the comments below how I can make the video better for you guys. You know, I say that every time. I love improving these videos for you guys. Again, thank you so much for the support. If you guys want to check out some more stuff on a regular basis, I got my Instagram where you can always follow me on there and see other videos similar to this posted in my studio with a bunch of other gear. And there may be a piece of gear in there that you want to see a video on, so hit me up on my Instagram and let me know about it. But with all that aside, you guys know the drill, and that's to share the love, share the knowledge. Knowledge is power. Peace.